Welcome to Suburban Warrior, the podcast that will impact, inspire, and empower you to transform your mindset and become the badass warrior that you are. I'm your host and fellow warrior, Chrissy Pfeiffer, former clinician and corporate marketing exec turned multi-passionate entrepreneur, performance and life coach, and mom to 4 not-so-little warriors. Each week, I will bring you honest conversations with inspiring guests to share their stories of resilience, optimism, success, and simple yet effective strategies so that you transform your thoughts and change your behavior to get the results you want in your life. You will be empowered to take action, warrior up, and believe in you. Let's do this. What's up, warriors? Welcome back to another episode of the Suburban Warrior podcast. This week, we have another awesome warrior here to share her story. And I'm really excited because for me, I think it's something very different. As a mindset coach, I think about like every single thought, every action, every little thing that we do in life matters. And each of us matter so much on this earth, and what we do matters, and the actions that we take matters. And, today's guest has truly made it her mission to help make our earth a better place, and a cleaner place for each and every one of us. And she's doing it one compost bucket at a time. So let me tell you a little bit about our guest today. Gwenn Nolan is the founder of Mother Compost, a composting service that began operation on the main line of Philadelphia in 2018. Their mission is to simplify composting to make it more accessible. Through service and education, Gwen and her team empower members of the community to make sustainable choices. Serving over 400 households in the area, Mother Compost makes composting simple for those short on time or space. When not driving the truck or operating the business, Gwen spends time speaking at schools and businesses to spread the word about the benefits of composting, as well as teaching practical composting basics to help home composters. She's also a wife and a mom to 3 amazing kids. Welcome to the podcast, Gwen. It's so nice to have you here.
Thanks, Chrissy. It's so exciting to be here. Thanks for having me today.
Of course. Well, I am really excited because I do want to learn a lot about composting because personally, I'm not really sure I know what it is generally, right? But I don't really understand how to do it, why I would want to do it, and all of those good things. So I'm excited to learn about that. But first, I want to hear about your story and sort of how you ended up deciding you wanted to start your own business, become an entrepreneur, and start Mother Compost, because I know you had a career prior to that in the financial services industry, and you were in PR and you did recruiting in New York City. So what led you to deciding you wanted to start Mother Compost?
That's a big question, and it's going to be a long, involved answer, but honestly, it started really small. And I truly think, what was one of your guests, Michelle, was talking about her cookbook. Had I really thought about it, I probably would have chickened out. The same could be said of this. Had I really been like, I'm going to start a waste management company, I'd be like, no, I'm not.
Right.
But it was more, I have 3 kids, you have kids, the amount of cooking and the amount of food I was throwing out, that never sits well with me. You're like, this is just wasteful, but getting food to the people who need it is almost impossible from a household perspective. So then I was looking at composting and attempted to do it myself at home, mixed results there. So then I was like, listen, I live on the main line, there's got to be a service for that. And I Googled it, and I couldn't find anything that day. Later, when I ended up doing research, there actually was a service. But I kind of believe that I wasn't meant, had I found it that day, I would have just signed up and moved on. So that's kind of, I think that was a little wink from the universe.
Absolutely. I was just going to say that's the universe intervening right there.
Yeah. So, and I think, looking back, it's funny when you reflect on these things, you can kind of see it all play out and it all makes sense. But at the time when you're in it, that's not the reality.
Yeah.
So I had a great job that I enjoyed with people I loved. It was the people that were really the best. but it was working with a lot of entrepreneurs. And what I loved always was hearing their origin story, like how they started their business and watching them when they talked about it. I was like, so cool. I was like a hanger on,
Tell me more.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Right.
I think mushrooms, like what? So I was always there was a part of me that was very drawn to that narrative. And I was always kind of trying to come up with ideas, and some of them were bad ideas, like maternity golf wear was like a real thing I tried to make go. And there's like addressable market, like women who are super pregnant golfing, like,
yeah, not so, too many. That's for
sure. No, like any marketing book will tell you, like don't swing at that one.
They do say to go for a niche market, but that might be too small of a niche.
little small.
Exactly.
So I remember coming down, I wrote it on a Post-it note, came down, and my husband, I was like, we're going to start composting service. He was like, what are you talking about? We're barely composting here. I don't know what you mean. And then I got pregnant with my third child. So I had time where I was like, I can't really do it right now, but I let it marinate for a couple months. And then I just kept coming back. It kept coming back to me. And so then I just decided, like, you know what? It's not that hard to do in terms of like buying a truck isn't that expensive. The barriers to entry to get into it weren't impossible. I talked to other composting companies in Philly who were amazing and super supportive. They could have been otherwise. And that would have set me off to it. They were like, you should talk to this person, who ended up being the gentleman who I bring the materials to now and who is like a direct competitor of mine. But he was like, yeah, you can bring the stuff to me. And we worked out a deal. And, again, there's a million reasons why it couldn't have worked, but it kind of did. And then I asked 10 friends to send a message and said, listen, I may have lost my mind. Like, it's entirely possible I'm going crazy. But like, I have to do something about this. Like, this idea keeps coming to me. So I asked them to be part of a focus group. I was like, I'm going to give you everything you need. I need you to compost at home for a month. And then at the end of the month, I'm going to send you a survey. Just tell me what you think. Like, was it easy? Did you like it? Would you pay for it? Like, did it help you in any way? And for the most part, people were like, this is awesome. Like, I didn't realize how much I was throwing away, that I couldn't put down my garbage disposal. So that's sort of like the evolution. But my why moment, honestly, because I was challenged recently to think about that.
Yeah.
And I remember, and I still feel this, like starting to look at, and I know, climate change is kind of politicized, but kind of what's happening on our living planet right now is a little terrifying. And, as a mom with kids, I know in 30 years that my kids are going to come to me and be like, what the, like, you guys had the iceberg warning in your hand. You gotta,
exactly.
What are you doing?
Right.
And regardless of what we accomplish in the next 30 years, they're going to levy stuff at me anyway.
Of course. Like, it'll just add it to the list.
That's the inevitable, and I'm going to be like, we didn't start the fire, which is true. We didn't we didn't get here because of us, but it's, this is unfortunately landed on our doorstep. And
yes.
I just imagine, like, my kids, 30 years, they have their own babies, and what they may be looking at could be a lot scarier than what we're looking at now, which is, a little like terrifying. And I think my urge to do something tangible to help me get over that fear. And also so that when that conversation comes to me, I can say, guys, I did everything I could think of.
Yeah.
Like, it may have been foolish. I may not have thought it through the whole way. Like, I may have made 100 mistakes, but like, I put my boots on, and like, I went to work. Like,
yeah, like literally.
Yeah. Like, so that, and that's kind of like everything I do. I'm like, because when that moment comes, that has to be my answer.
Yeah.
Like, I cannot live with anything else. So that's like what drives me.
Yeah.
And it helps me when I'm like being a wimp. Like, I don't want to make that call. It's like,
yeah.
Did you do everything you could? Did you do everything? Did you make the call? Did you get uncomfortable? Because if you didn't, then like, you can't say that.
I love that. I love that, because that's such a strong why. And that's a why that's literally like in your face every day, right?
Yeah.
When you see your kids every day, and and you can think about that, like, how can I answer that question in 30 years? That's really awesome. And I think that's, that is such a question that so many of us can ask ourselves about anything that it is that we're fearful of doing, that we, like you said, it was like, it was something that kept coming up in your head, right? It was there was a message there. Something was saying, I have to explore this. I have to explore this. And who knows, maybe you would have explored it and decided, that's just not, it actually isn't going to work out the way I thought it would. And you can move on, but at least, you explored it. There's so many people that get that message, get that thought, and then just shut it down because of fear. But that why is something that drives you every single day. And it keeps you going to take the next step and make it bigger. And, I know I said, isn't it? So it says serving 400 households. I feel like it's more than that now.
We just hit 500.
You just hit 500. Exactly. I saw that on social media. So congratulations. That's amazing.
It's growing quickly. So yes, it's exciting. It's wild. Like it's a young industry. They're really it takes a little capital, but it's not that scary to start because you're like, I'm not like, my house isn't up for collateral, right. Like you can figure it out. Just takes a lot of sweat equity. But then as it gets bigger, you're like, oh, this is super labor intensive, like crazy. So
tell us about okay, so what is the service? I know there's buckets involved and you're probably putting food in the buckets that you're not eating. So, but explain to me in a little bit more detail, what is composting?
All right. So we'll start at the beginning. So composting. So there's two parts to composting, which is interesting. So composting is the physical act of taking food scraps, which are nitrogen-rich material, and carbon materials, which is like leaves or wood chips or sawdust or things, and combining them to create a natural chemical. It's not a chemical reaction. It's a microorganisms. Essentially, I'm trying to think of the best way to say that. It's not a chemical reaction, but it is. It's like a natural process by which the materials break down into a fertilizer, for lack of a better term, called compost.
Gotcha.
So there's composting, which is the way we define the act of separating food scraps out of your normal trash and putting them into a separate container. And then there's compost, which is what comes out of that process and then gets applied back onto soil and lawn.
Gotcha. Okay.
Introduces microorganisms back to the soil.
Right. So that the compost is essentially like a very nutrient rich type of fertilizer or soil that is better to use for whatever flower beds.
Microorganisms that help encourage plant growth. They help with moisture and water retention. They help prevent plant disease, because on the other side is agriculture in this world has depleted our soils.
Yeah.
The way we do things, we are learning is very bad. And it's all connected, right? So the natural design of this planet and how it was all supposed to work is that apple falls from a tree. It either gets eaten by something and then gets pooped back out, or, but the nutrients, nothing is wasted in nature.
Exactly.
Everything is repurposed and reused in this beautiful design. But we kind of get in the way of it because that's just, we disrupt that cycle a little bit. So this is helping to complete that cycle and get those nutrients back to the soil. It's essentially the recycling of the nutrients, because the food that you're throwing away still has that nutritional value that it took from the soil when it grew, but we're putting it in the trash. And the way we process trash, a lot of people no one wants to think about their trash, right? It's like everyone's dirty little secret. I put it out and it goes away, right?
Yeah, exactly. I will tell you, I agree with you, because sometimes when I think about it, because we're a family of 6, right? So we have a lot of trash. And sometimes when I think about it, I don't want to think about it because it's overwhelming. Because when I look at how much trash we have, and then I combine that with everyone on our street, then I combine it with everyone on the neighborhood. And then you think of everyone in our town. It's like, oh my God, that's so much trash. And then that's like when your mind starts spiraling, and then I'm like, can't think about it.
Totally. Totally. And that, I swear, part of me was like, I'm paralyzed by this, so I'm just going to start moving. I'm just going to doing something, because that's the only way I can But so the craziest thing is we all think like, well, if it would biodegrade, if I threw that apple core outside, like it would be fine. That's not littering.
Right.
So if I put it in my trash, it's still going to biodegrade in the landfill. But landfills, how we do it. So basically landfill is we dig a big hole, we bury it. That's what we do with our trash. Landfills do not process trash. They store it forever.
Oh my God.
So every day they pour more trash in, then they seal it with a layer of plastic, and then they put dirt onto it. They're making trash lasagna wherever a landfill is.
That's insane.
But the problem is that deprives any organic material of oxygen, which they need to go through their natural process of biodegrading. It's so instead they go through anaerobic digestion. I'm not sure about the wording on that, but it's essentially, since they're deprived of oxygen, they go through a different process, which causes them to release methane gas, which doesn't stay in the atmosphere as much as carbon dioxide, but it is 80 times more potent. So it's a very volatile gas. So you're seeing landfills now where they're trying to pump out the methane and use it for energy, but it's something that has to be maintained and has been known forever. So to me, I'm not a scientist or an oceanographer. Like there's in the fight on climate change, my capacity is somewhat limited. Right. So this is what I can do.
Yeah, exactly.
But to me, it's just like, it makes sense. Like, we can't keep throwing this stuff in there because eventually we're going to run out of, how many places are we going to keep digging a hole? Like, is this the plan? Is this a long-term plan? And this is in the United States. So, there's all kinds of countries doing all kinds of stuff. There's trash all over this place.
I can't even imagine that that's what's happening.
Right.
So for someone,
it's
like, what? How's that possible? Okay. So for someone like me, like typical suburban household who knows nothing about composting, like what does your service provide? How does it work?
So we give everyone a container for like a larger household. Sometimes it's multiple containers because we come every other week.
Okay.
It's $18 a month for one container, like every other week. And then it goes up by $2 just as you add containers. We pick it up every other week. We send a reminder the night before. So you don't, if you forget, you can literally text us and say, skip me, and you get a $5 credit. We clean the container after every pickup. We put a fresh can liner in it. So essentially you put it out, then we'll come through the next day and you'll have a clean bucket with a fresh container liner that you can start throwing scraps into immediately. And then in the spring, right around now, we return up to 60 pounds of compost to any of our subscribers who want it. So that way you can be spreading it in your garden. If you're doing any raised beds this year, your vegetables go insane. So
that's awesome.
That way we're also spreading this compost that's being made locally. At Linville Orchards actually has, as part of their on-farm operation, commercial composting. So let's think about it. Like, instead of our trash going out to Allentown, or if you're in Delaware County, like going to the Covanta incinerator in Chester and being burned, now it's going to a farm where it's being turned into compost, being spread on a farm that we all love to go to, or coming back and you can work with it in your own garden.
Wow, that's so incredible.
And we're committed to keeping it. So, I'm thinking of myself, like, I want to do the right thing. I see this problem, but I'm really busy and I got a lot on my plate. So like, I'm in if you can make it easy.
Yeah.
And like relatively affordable. Like and then if people want to do it themselves, like I work with Hartford Township on teaching a class, like I just want composting to go. Like to me, this is basic. Like we've got to get on this one.
It's really so interesting to me because as we're talking, I'm sitting here thinking like this is so good for the environment, and yet it's like when when you and I were growing up, like recycling wasn't a thing, right? Like no, we didn't have a recycling container. Like every plastic, everything just went in one thing. So we have recycling now. Like it seems to me that composting is it's so huge for the environment and it's so easy. Like, why isn't composting more of a thing now? Right. But to your point, it's like, we're just getting there. Maybe it's just getting out there, and services such as your own are going to be the ones who really, make their mark and make it more of a everyday, every household kind of thing. And hopefully 10 years from now, or sooner than that, hopefully 5 years from now, it'll be just like recycling where everyone has their own composting bin as well because of companies like yours.
And actually up until probably like at the late 60s, I think, in Philadelphia, we did compost, and they used to send it to the Jersey, like the pig farmers in New Jersey. And then, so like people, like there are houses in Havertown that have these little steel, like trash things on their yards where they used to leave, they called it the garbage and the trash. And like the compost was garbage, but like not trash. So like if you talk to people who've been here for a while, they're like, we used to do this. This used to be a thing.
Wow, that's so crazy.
Isn't it? So it's just, I mean, things come, composting has literally, I love this. There's like the Akkadian Empire in like 3442 BC. Like it's on a clay tablet. Like this has been around. This is not a new, composting is not a new idea. Like George Washington wrote about it because it's the best way to get healthy soil, which is critical to plant health, which is critical, like healthy plants, healthy people, like healthy planet. Like there's so much that goes, and that's been, I mean, I am Alice all over the place. I am just falling down rabbit holes like left and right. I can't even, like, the trip I'm on right now is robust.
Oh my gosh. So tell us about, so, you know, like we said, you're super busy, your wife, you're a mom of 3, you have this business, you know, throughout the process when you're starting your business. You know, tell us about a challenge or something that you faced that you really had to, like, you know, check your mindset, really be like, okay, I'm going to do this, you know, I got this, or something that you had to overcome, but it really took your belief in self, getting over your fear, something like that for you to come out of that.
You know, there's probably been so many moments like that.
You're like, every day,
you know, and some weeks it is like that. You're
right.
You know, and I think every milestone as a business has also kind of challenged me, like, okay, because, you know, I'm taking people's money and they're subscribing to a service and sometimes they're paying me for the year. So I'm like, okay, what are you doing to make sure you're here in a year? Because otherwise you should close. So like there was, you know, but, you know, really like,
totally.
Are you going to do the do? Because if not, you should stop. Don't lie to these people, which to all of my subscribers, I am not going anywhere.
All my subscribers.
You know, that's the check-in. Like, hey, do you mean it? And do you mean it forever? Like, as long as you can. Like, there are certainly things out of my control, but like, what is in my control?
Yeah.
So that I feel like as I reached the point of 100, I kept kind of being like, are you gonna do this? Especially when I was still working my other job and, you know, trying to figure it out. And every time it was like, yeah. And COVID and this whole thing forced me to kind of pick between my kind of corporate day job and my like ninja life. And I felt like that point was coming, but I was, you know, I really, again, I enjoyed who I was working with and the work I was doing. But I recognized that, like, to quit Mother Compost and close, which would have been understandable given Corona and kind of the concerns around contamination at that moment. Like, I had an out. And I recognized that to do it would have been like a soul death. Yeah. Like a part of like who I am and who I was becoming would have, and that I couldn't deal with. Like the money getting tight and like figuring, like, I was like, I think I can live with that. Like, I can't look back and know that, like, I just kind of was like, it got hard.
Yeah.
I'm gonna stop. And you know, I had one employee at that time, and we hired another shortly thereafter. And you're like, these people are showing up every day to do the do. Yeah. You know, these 2 women. If I ever write a book about this, there's going to be a chapter and a love note to these 2.
I love that.
So I am the biggest of the ladies doing this job, and it is a physical muscle job. And they show up at 6 a.m., drive a big ass truck, and like are here for it. And if you've ever had someone like show up for you in a way that makes you like, I will cry if I start talking about too much, but like,
oh, I love that. Well, that's so special because it is about community too, right? It's about, you know, not just doing it for yourself. Cause like you said, when you know, like the money got tight. Could you deal with that and get through that? Yes. But when you really looked yourself in the mirror and said, oh, I quit, that's something you couldn't live with. So yes, it's about you and fulfilling your passions, but it's about being on the journey with other people who have the same passion as you, the same energy, and, can really get behind the mission that you see as well. And I think that that's such a special thing to find those people and be on the journey with them. It's awesome. I love that.
Yeah, it's been great. But I will also say to your question, like the other thing I really had to step to is, now that we're 500, we're all doing the things, is okay. Because I secretly love driving. I listen to podcasts like Suburban Warrior. I have my me time, like I'm alone. I think best when I'm in motion, but doing something like doing the dishes or like I kind of need my body to be moving to let my mind just wander a little bit. So not that I'm like,
no, I totally get that. Like all of my thoughts come to me in the shower because I'm like, by myself. No one's talking to me, but like it's self-talk time.
I need that like space. And I do my pickups early because I have kids and so it's usually just like me on the road doing my thing. And it's just that it's kind of like spacious. Yeah. It's very early, but whatever. So my challenge to myself is like, I know you love driving the truck and I'm still going to have to continue to do that for a while, but is that what's helping us grow the company? Like, is that what I need to be doing or is that what I want to be doing? Like, or I love to be in the inbox and like answering little, yes, I can help you with that. And like, no problem. And it makes me feel great. One of my coaches, she's like, yeah, it's like that dopamine hit. Like, yeah, you're killing it. She's like, you're checking little boxes. Yeah. What have you done to check those big boxes to move the needle forward on? So like composting, you're understanding that like, it seems like it should just be a thing. Why isn't it? There's really no infrastructure to support it. So we're very lucky that there is a processing site in Media, but there's only one other one currently that is located in Royersford. And that's it. And they can accept a certain amount of material and that's it. Like government really hasn't started to put resources towards that. It's still the same, permitting process as a landfill on certain. So there's a lot of cooperation from the private sector and the public sector, and that has to happen to make sure that we can have infrastructure for composting where we're not taking materials from here and shipping them to like Lancaster, so there's a lot that has to get figured out in the next 5-10 years so that local composting efforts can be supported so that the nutrients in the area can stay in the area. So there's so much that goes into it. And those are the things that I need to be thinking about because in 2 years, like, we need to figure that out. And I say we, like the community of Philadelphia composters will need to figure that out.
Right. And that's so that goes back to the very beginning of the podcast saying, if you really think it all through and think about how big it is, you would be like, forget it, not even going there. Not because it's with anything, right? Whether it's writing a book, starting a composting company,
starting any company,
starting a podcast, like anything. Like when you start thinking about it, like, and you really start doing it, unless you just start doing it, if you think about it too far ahead and the next step, it's like so overwhelming.
It's paralyzing. Absolutely.
So you just decide not to do it. So I think the moral of that story is, yes, it needs to come a long way, but also, for listeners, like whatever it is that they are thinking about right now, that they might be looking so far down the road. The moral of the story is stop looking so far down the road. Just think about right now. Think about today. Think about whatever it is that your idea is, or, I don't even care if it's just wanting to like clean your basement out, like whatever it is, like that's overwhelming too.
Take a class.
Take a class, do anything. Don't think of it as being so overwhelming. Chunk it out, right? One little step at a time, one little brick at a time.
The other advice that I have gotten, and I remember, so it was a husband and wife couple running a gym in Ardmore, and it was like an Ardmore day, and I knew he still was working, and I had this idea in my head, and I was like, so what's that like? He's like, it's good. It helps give us, security in terms of, and that was the first time I was like, great, I don't have to quit my job and like go whole hog on this thing. Why don't I just figure out how to make it work while I keep my job? And that way, if it doesn't work, like, so I look foolish. Like, please, I've looked foolish for like much dumber things, like Penn State football. Like I have made a fool of myself for a lot less.
For a lot less.
Causes.
Yeah, exactly.
So, but like it kind of opened up my mind, like, great, okay, yeah, I don't have to like re-engineer my life just to see if I can make this work and to see what it feels like in my body to do this and like what that, and it, I mean, even though I was waking up at 2 a.m. and driving a truck and then going to work, I swear to you, somehow it gave me energy. And I still don't, like, looking back, I have no idea how I was functioning, but I did it. Like, you did it. And it was, and I was juiced, like, and I still am. So like, you're on the right track when like you should be exhausted and you're hyped.
Yeah. Well, but I love that because the whole thing, I always say, passion is energy. It's really just when you feel energized, like when people are like, well, I don't know what my passions are. And I want to be passionate about something, but I don't know what it is. And it's about following your energy, right? Just follow the energy. And, like you said, when you wanted to see how it felt like in your body, when you do things that make you feel light, that make you feel energized, that make you like want to run through walls, that's passion. When you're doing things that make you feel exhausted and you're pissed and you're angry, frustrated, that's not what you're passionate about. Totally. Go away from that because that is not where it is. Well, Gwen, it sounds like you have so found your passion because just speaking with you today, and obviously you're so knowledgeable, but you light up. My listeners can't see that, but you light up when you talk about it. And I think that is really, that's the key. That's what it's all about. And it's so important. So thank you so much for joining us today and sharing not only about Mother Compost and composting in general, which I'm really excited to learn about, but also sharing your story about how you decided to get there, because I think that's, every story points us in a new direction, and it's really important for you to share yours. So thank you.
Oh, thank you for having me, Chrissy. It was a ball. I could talk about this all day.
I love it. Well, tell us where listeners can find Mother Compost.
Yeah. So mothercompost.com is our website. You can check that out. And we are on Instagram, Mother Compost, Facebook, Mother Compost. And we have a YouTube channel too. We have a lot of fun making random videos. So we're just having a ball.
Oh, that's so great. Well, thank you so much. It sounds like you're having a ball. And the best thing is you're doing it for the earth, right? Making it cleaner and better for all of us. So thank you so much. And listeners, I would encourage you to let us know what you think of this episode. You can subscribe, rate, and review in Apple Podcasts and drop us a comment so we can hear what you thought of Mother Compost. And don't forget to check her out. And if you're local to the Philadelphia area, check out her subscription, $18 a month. I think that's pretty amazing.
Free trial, 30-day free trial too.
Come on. That's awesome. $18, we spend more on coffee in a week. So that's pretty awesome. Thank you so much, Gwen. And thank you guys. We'll see you next week.